Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We are embarking on a really meticulous deep dive micro-analysis of a highly unusual, ultra-minimalist source text. We're calling this one The Duality of the Digital Soul, an analysis of spirituality and spirituality. Let's get right into it.
So get this, our entire source material for today consists of exactly 3 words. Yeah, you heard that right. Literally just 3 words. It's incredibly rare to encounter a text this brief, yet somehow so remarkably dense with implication. I really want you to ponder just how much meaning, how much of a narrative arc can actually be packed into such a microscopic space. Because when a source is this limited, every single keystroke carries monumental weight.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the text in its complete, stark reality. Spiritual and spiritual. Take a second and just really look at that. At first glance, it probably just seems like a simple phrase, maybe jotted down in a rush. But as we break it apart, we're actually going to uncover a profound mystery hidden right there in the spelling. We're going to look at these specific words not just as a random sequence of letters, but as a fascinating representation of duality.
To really appreciate the structure here, let's break it down mathematically. As you can see, our text is perfectly evenly divided into 3 distinct functional thirds. 33.3% is dedicated to the ideal concept, spiritual. Another 33.3% acts as the conjunction, the bridge, and the final 33.3% is the anomaly, spiritual. The source text gives absolute equal weight to the intended ideal, the grammatical bridge, and the ultimately flawed human execution. It's like a perfectly balanced equation of imperfection.
So let's start with part 1, the known concept. The text opens with spiritual. We all know this word, right? It relates to the human spirit, the soul, the ethereal, the non-material world. In the context of our microanalysis here, this first word represents the intended ideal. It's the perfect, flawless concept. It's spelled correctly and aligns exactly with the dictionary definition. Basically, it represents the absolute highest, most pristine version of the thought the author was trying to convey. It is pure intent, perfectly executed.
Which brings us to part 2, the bridge.
You see, the text doesn't just stop at perfection, it moves forward with and. This simple, incredibly common conjunction operates as a totally vital bridge in our text. It links that perfect, correctly spelled concept we just established to whatever is coming next. It tells us that the thought isn't complete yet. The ideal concept of the spiritual doesn't exist in isolation. It exists in a relationship with something else.
And this brings up a really fascinating question. What does and actually signify in this specific sequence? Usually, and connects 2 related, often similar things. So is this bridge meant to connect 2 identical ideas? Was the author simply trying to repeat themselves for emphasis? Or is this and doing something much heavier? Is it deliberately, or maybe completely accidentally, setting up a sharp juxtaposition?
Let's look at part 3, the anomaly. Now, what's really interesting here is that the bridge leads us directly to the climax of our text. Look closely at the ending, A-U-L, spir-to-ol. The A and the U have been transposed. The ideal concept has been totally fractured. We have officially departed from the dictionary and entered the wild realm of the anomaly.
So how do we even define this? I mean, sure, we could just call it a typo and move on. But in the spirit of deep analysis, let's treat it as what it truly is, a digital artifact. Spiritual is the flawed human execution of that initial ideal concept. It's defined entirely by that rapid, accidental transposition of the A and the U. It perfectly reflects the chaotic, fast-paced nature of human typing, where our physical fingers simply cannot keep up with the pure, pristine intent of the mind.
Let's look at them side by side to really drive this home. On the left, we have spiritual, the ideal concept. And on the right, spiritual, the flawed execution. Visually isolating them like this shows us just how incredibly fragile digital perfection really is. The simple flipping of 2 adjacent vowels completely alters the entire presentation of the word. It takes something ethereal and grounds it immediately in the clumsy physical reality of mashing keys on a keyboard.
Moving on to part 4, perfection versus human error.
So, the crucial point is, what does this tiny drama actually represent? It's all about how this text balances perfection with human error. First, it perfectly represents the ideal versus the real, what we actually meant to say versus what our fingers ended up typing out. Second, it highlights our inherent human imperfection. Even when we're discussing something as elevated as spirituality, we are totally prone to mechanical errors. And third, by existing together in this single, unfiltered source text, it transforms a mundane typing mistake into a unique, almost poetic artifact of human creation.
I want you to consider this deeply for a second. When you look at that typo, is it just a slip of the keyboard? Or, in a wonderfully ironic way, is it a brilliant reflection of our own flawed, stumbling, imperfect attempts to grasp at perfect divine concepts? We constantly reach for the spiritual, but so often we end up with the spiritual.
And this brilliantly illustrates the unexpected beauty of the digital glitch. If the text had simply said spiritual and spiritual, it would be entirely unremarkable. It would be completely forgettable. It's the inclusion of the typo, the literal visual evidence of the human hand faltering, that actually gives this tiny string of text its unique, memorable character. The error is exactly what makes it interesting.
Let's move on and see how this builds our final perspective. We return to the full text one last time, spiritual and spiritual. Think about how your understanding has evolved over the last few minutes. We started out by looking at a simple repetition with a typo, but now we can recognize it as a complete, self-contained philosophical statement about the human condition in the digital world. It's the mind and the machine, the ideal and the glitch, captured beautifully in just 3 words.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. As we march toward a perfectly auto-corrected, AI-smoothed world where every text is instantly scrubbed of its flaws, is it those very spiritual errors that actually prove we're still human? Perhaps it's the glitches, the typos, and the missteps that represent our true digital souls. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. Keep analyzing the small things, and I will catch you in the next explainer.